We're live. What's up, guys?
We're back.
Boys,
Part 7?
Part 7. It's been a minute. What's new? What's new in your lives? What's new in audit?
It's the first New Year. This is the first New Year episode.
Yeah.
Taylor shaved his face. I think that's like a big update for the audience.
My New Year's resolution was to shave my face. I knocked it out first week.
Donated that to me.
Winning.
just a chill 11 months left now. Nothing else to do.
Nothing.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys had a
Sorry.
listen with Platter. Ben, serve it up.
I mean, the big update is that Platter Plus is going to be launched publicly at the beginning of February. I feel like that's been a long time coming, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Nice.
So
Do you want to let people know what that is?
Yeah, it's basically cross-sell, upsell apps. So think checkout extensions, post-purchase upsell. I would say from the 150 brands we've worked with, it's like the most requested functionality they've been asking for. So built that into a Shopify app.
Nice.
Well, sick. We'll give another minute here as people roll in. For those of you that have connected already, drop a comment. Let us know where you're dialing in from. Maybe drop a link to your brand, what you're trying to learn today. And if you're new to this format, it's pretty simple. We are going to take apart a part of the store. The show is called Anatomy of a Storefront. We kind of see the whole storefront as like not too different from anatomy in medical school. So we take apart each section, go deep on it, explain our thinking behind how to optimize it. We'll give examples. And at the end, we'll bake in enough time to do sort of like audience participation. So if you drop your store in the comments, we will pull it up live and do a live teardown. I think we're good to rock if you guys want to start. So I think Shaun and Taylor, before we get into it, do you have like an opening rant that you would give about collections pages, opening thoughts?
Yeah, I think generally what I see when it comes to collections pages is if we think about like primary versus secondary pages, primary being pages that push you further down the path to a purchase versus secondary pages being more content based, right? Like our story page, maybe it's talking about the science behind a product. Those would be secondary. I think collections is always looked at as the least sexy page of the, between homepage, product pages, bundle pages, quizzes. It's the least sexy. And so what we see is brands try and make it more sexy. And a lot of times what they're doing when they do that is making it lower converting because they're adding a lot of clutter and information that isn't really necessary in that particular setting. It really is intended to be a collection. Like they've clicked on watch bands or pants or whatever filter, at the navigation level that they're looking for. And the goal of that next stage in the journey is show them all the products that they're trying to filter to, pants, watch bands, whatever. And I think a lot of brands get a little bit stir crazy of just having this standard collection page. And so they try and add too much bells and whistles to it. And it generally doesn't help because that's not the intent of the page. So I think with a lot of collections, it's more about how do we keep it simple while still communicating everything they need to get to the next stage, which is usually the product page.
I think it's more for discoverability, right? Like it's nice. Yeah. It's nice if you can have CTAs to let people buy at any point in the journey. But ultimately, if someone's looking at a collection, they're trying to just navigate everything that you can offer in that category. So to Shaun's point, simplicity is very important to allow someone to move forward in their purchasing journey because it's not, you're never going to see a brand where like the place that people purchase the most is on the collection page.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up discoverability, which I like to double click and really define that because it could just be a buzzword. But I do think that there's a lot that people need to unpack with what that means and what the purpose is in the consumer journey. I think that people overlook this almost as if it does not matter. So like you look at a theme, you're going to evaluate the homepage layout, you're going to evaluate the product page, cart maybe, but you just look at the collections page and you're like, yeah, whatever. And then you install that theme, and then most brands never go in there and look at it. So I'd like you guys kind of like walk me through like what discoverability means, like why that would be such a critical mistake to make, to just leave these pages just out of box theme style.
Well, I mean, to be honest, in some cases, that's what they should be doing instead of tinkering. But at the end of the day, it's more about how effective are your filters within it, right? Like if you have a lot of SKUs, the filtering becomes extremely important. How do I get them where they want to go really quickly? And then the content on those cards becomes really important as well, right? The main idea of a collection is, it's just like in retail, right? If I'm buying coffee at a retail store and there's 25 different brands, I'm really deciding based on the packaging or maybe my personal opinions on certain brands that I'm going to be drawn to. But the visual is one thing, right? How do we make sure that the visual aligns with what we're selling? And then also allowing them to easily compare, right? Like if in that retail setting, if all the coffee bags and different brands are lined up and then one brand is turned backwards, it becomes harder to compare things because I don't know what brand it is. It's the same on your collection page on a site. If I click on pants, it needs to be really clear. All the images need to be the same content, right? I don't want to have one product being shown, the pants on a white background, and one product, the pants are shown on a person. It's not super easy to directly compare those. At least in one, I'm seeing how it fits. Maybe it's a wider leg or whatever, whereas in the flat photo, I don't necessarily get that same context. So you really want to make sure that the content on each of them is consistent in terms of how it's presented, and then also just giving them everything they need, right? Whether it's reviews, pricing, like the basics, but then also what's your best selling, what's on sale, what's a bundle, what's not. Anything that can help push them to the next stage, right? Is there maybe they don't like it in green, show them that there's 10 other colors so that they can click through and look at those colors. All of that matters. But I think for the most part, themes are giving them that power. So it's really just filling in the fields properly at that point, not necessarily adding a bunch of noise. There is definitely noise that helps. It's a little harder than the out-of-the-box solution.
I think one note I'll add to that is I oftentimes see brands that aren't maximizing the real estate that's available to them, right? Like a simple example for you would be for a supplement brand, like leveraging the second image where you can have a hover state that shows like the nutrition label, or like showing, to your point, if there's a discount, if there's a number of reviews for a product as social proof. So I think to the extent that you can answer some questions that someone might have at the next stage in the journey, I think you're just getting ahead of it to increase the likelihood that they're going to buy.
Something you touched on is like, in a way that they're more technical than other core pages, right? Because you need to nail filters, you need to nail, what are the other elements? It's always like you have a filter, you have a toggle, you have sizes if you're in apparel and stuff like that, and all of that is done in the back end, so it would probably scare away someone who hasn't had a lot of experience merchandising a Shopify store. But out of box, like what collections do you think, every brand is different, but what collections do you think every brand should have that help with discoverability?
Best sellers. I think serving people up what other people are buying is always helpful, especially if they're coming in from homepage or navigation. Just if they're coming to explore some things, kind of letting them just run around in your store is going to, give the probability they bounce. But if you give them something that's like, other people love these, it's just a good jumping off point to get them, further down the customer journey.
Yeah.
New releases, I feel like, is always a good thing if you have a larger catalog. I find myself usually going to new with most apparel brands just because fashion trends are working like that. It's not as relevant to a brand that's like lower SKU count, lower catalog. Yeah, I think that goes back to like the point of discoverability, right? Like if someone comes to your website, you're not a single product. You're not like trying to think of like every brand now is like expanded pretty heavily. like maybe like the early days of like the mattress companies when they had like one option, right? You can maybe get like different sizes. Now every brand has like a men's line, a women's line, a kids line. Like really thinking through, like if I landed on your store today, like make it idiot proof to find the exact products that person would want to shop.
Yeah. I think bundles too, like preset bundles. If you have a product that, is cross-sellable or, it's a good bundle product, preset bundles is a great way to get AOV up. And a lot of brands kind of forget about that. They do it only on like the product page or try to cross-sell in cart. But building preset bundles before going into like build your own bundle and having to deal with logistics operations and like pick and pack, just preset bundles that really complement each other is a great way to up AOV.
Yeah.
Do you have like a checklist when you guys are doing an audit of a brand for things that you're looking for on the collections page, or is it more like bespoke?
There's definitely like when we're looking at the product cards on a collections page, we want to make a list of everything that the product entails, right? So let's say it is clothing. We'll make a list of everything that's unique about the product, and then we'll decide and kind of filter that into two sections. One is what are primary things? So what are things, if I'm looking at that product against its comparables on a collection page, that are going to help it stand out, push them into being like, okay, yeah, that's the one for me. And what are the secondary elements, right? So like what I mean by that is if every pair of pants is organic cotton, probably don't need that on the product card because they're all sharing it. It's not really a decision point. Maybe that's in a band at the top of the page, really simply, that they're all organic cotton, they're all whatever, made in America. The things that are unique about it, that maybe each pant is different, like the fit, color choices, that's something I want on that card because it's a comparison point across the collection. So we're generally trying to filter between those two lists and making sure that the primary things that set it apart are at least considered for part of the product card. You don't want to overwhelm it with content, but getting kind of the 2 or 3 things in there that are most important in terms of setting it apart or giving it a comparison point into that card.
One call out too that we see a lot of brands doing is having the quick ad on the collections page. And for some brands, like, we deal with a lot of like marketplaces for like healthy groceries or healthy snacks. Makes sense if somebody's coming back, they know what it is. They don't need to go to a product page and get that extra, like that additional information. But doing it too early, like if it's a higher priced product and you want to see the details, sometimes it really kind of hurts you. People add quickly to cart and then abandon because they're not pushed over the edge. So be careful with that, test it. And a lot of times pushing them to the product page is going to get the abandoned cart rate down and get them across the finish line, just because you can put more there than just in a little card.
Was that the sound of birds and monkeys in your background? That's so calming.
I went back to the wires, so there's no noise cancel, so you can just hear everything. It's been a nightmare. I've got like the plugs. My plug broke on my AirPods. It's been a nightmare. But yes, that is birds chirping and intercoms going off. So if it gets too crazy, I'll try to stay on mute when I'm not talking. But
no, it's awesome. It feels like background music. It's very calming. Is there a recent client where you guys did a lot of work on their collection space that you can bring up? I have a backup if there's something that comes to mind for you guys, but I kind of want to walk through a point with you. And I think if we had a brand to look at, it would be good to illustrate. Also, if you're tuning in, we are going to do live teardowns at the end. So if you want to leave a link to your website or your collection page specifically, just drop it in the comments on LinkedIn, and then we'll pull it up and tear it apart live.
I just sent you one, Elliot. So this one pulls out a few interesting things. kind of a 150-year-old custom, not custom, but really bespoke boot brand out of the US. Again, it's presenting things really simply, right? There's not a lot of clutter. You're seeing the products. What makes them easy to compare is the boots take up an ample part of the white space on the image, right? So they're properly fit in there. They're all the same in size ratio. So if you go up to the top, Elliot, the first band, okay, no, go down. We're looking for one that's a bit shorter cut. If you scroll down, you'll find a boot. So right there, up, the chase boot. See how that chase boot is a bit shorter? So like even just making sure that the sizing is exact in terms of the actual image within the holder, it's easy for them to see that boot a little bit lower cut. And then another thing that we always do is, even though desktop is secondary for a lot of brands, making sure that we're incorporating a hover state that adds value. So this company actually went in and they made hover states. Some of them are different. Some of them are lifestyle images. Some of them are detailed sizing and detailed charts. But for me, that detailed chart is important. It highlights additional details that they're going to get on the product page, but maybe it's what pushes them over. Maybe it's the type of leather, maybe it's the size, maybe it's the height, excuse me, what it's lined with, that kind of content. And then the other thing that's interesting about this is if you scroll up on the filter, on the left side there. So toe shape. A lot of brands, when they're using filtering, they're focusing on descriptive elements, right? And they're making a big assumption that a company or that a customer understands each of them, right? These, if you were to just say broad, square, and cutter toe as a filter, I mean, I personally don't own cowboy boots, so I wouldn't know the difference, but even those, if you look at those thumbnails, they're really close. There's a difference, right? Like you can see the difference. One's a little thinner at the front, but they're really close. So when it comes to products like this that are really unique and really specific and pretty decent price point, those little details of just the difference between a bit wider toe and a bit thinner toe, some of them are important to visualize, right? Color's an obvious one, but the cut of the toe on this is really important. A lot of people that are wearing a boot like this, they have a really specific style that they're looking for. You know, Bluntstone is another good example that would be using something like this, where it's a really clear visual reference of that toe and what they're seeing.
This is so sick. My brother wears a lot of cowboy boots, so I'm going to send it to him. The one thing I wanted to talk about, I think we kind of went over, is like how you get into collection pages in the first place. I mean, you could be sent by ad traffic or something to them, but for the most part, you're getting there from the navigation. So it's kind of this intimate relationship between your nav bar and collections. Can you speak to like a little bit of how you guys optimize that relationship?
Yeah, I think I would love to see more sites adapting collection pages based on where you came from, right? Like if I came from an ad for men's boots and they landed at this collections page and they'd never heard of Higher Boots, the page should probably have a small brand statement, right? It's 150 years old. Just that alone, right? No reviews, nothing. The second I know someone's been in business 150 years, all trust is there. That's a very hard thing to do, right? It's hard to run a business for 5 years. 150 is insanity, right? So whether they have reviews, whether their friend told them they're good, it doesn't even matter, right? If you've been around that long, it's just assumed that you're a good product. And very few brands have that, right? Like Red Wing, brands like that are a little more mainstream. It's just assumed that they're high quality because they've been around so long. And so if you're coming from an ad right to here, I would love an adaptation of this page that gives a little bit of brand context, right? Versus if they're coming from the homepage, they've probably been told that story. So maybe you don't need it. And so I think I would love to see more brands adapting collections based on where they're coming from. Not an easy thing to do, but I do think it matters and it's something to be accounted for. And sometimes you want to just make sure it's something they don't miss, right? So maybe on a page like this, you just, because it doesn't take up much space, maybe you always put that just to make sure that it's not being missed. But I think from a nav standpoint, it really just depends on how far down the filter they are, right? If it's just the boots page and they haven't picked men's or women's even, or the style, or if they're using them for walking or riding or whatever, you want to surface more filters. If they're already in the men's boots, then you can probably remove some of those filters and just let them focus on the filters of within that category. So they do change a little bit, but for the most part, all I really want to see is confirm with the user where they are. So they clicked on men's boots and you tell them right away, hey, you're at men's boots, right? You're just confirming you're at the right location, like an address. And then giving them access to the right filters to find the right one for them really simply and really clearly. That's really the main thing that we're trying to do here.
I think too, like we do a ton of landing pages. Very rarely do we do collections landing pages, but in the apparel category, it's one of the ones that makes sense. Just, building out a different collections page for whether it's like special drops or, special editions or whatever, or just men's, women's, you can build out that lander to kind of have like a traditional kind of hero to talk a bit about the brand and then go into the collection. So you don't need to actually like do that on your main site, but send ad specific traffic to that landing page for collections that you're, messaging in the ad.
I think if you scroll down to Elliot, the very bottom of the products, at least, you'll see some that say last call. It should be at the very bottom, right there. So even things like this, a lot of high-end brands, they shy away from sale, right? Verbiage like last call is interesting because technically these are on sale, right? They have a strike through price and a pretty drastic discount. But a lot of high-end brands shy away from discounting, but they position it as, hey, we're a bespoke brand. These just aren't going to be around much longer. Get them while you can. And it almost takes away that negative connotation of, oh, they're on sale because they're not selling. It's positioned more, even in just a couple words, that we're always making new shit and these are going out and new ones are coming in. Even right above these, you see they have coming soon. So I think that's an interesting thing to do, is position sales in a positive light, as opposed to what sales are usually looked at as, oh, these are either being discontinued for a negative reason, or we just need to blow out stock because no one's buying them, right? Which is not a great thing. That's not really driving me to purchase them. But at the end of the day, for a new user, a discounted price is a great way to enter into the brand, right? Maybe they love the look of these, but $500 isn't something they're willing to spend. If they can find one of these last call ones for $250, they're going to love them, right? You're betting on the quality of your product and that the customer is going to love them. They get them at a good point, and then the next boots they buy, they're less price sensitive.
So I wanted to summarize some of your pointers here. So the first one is call out what collection you're in, bold font, big, like men's boots on the screen in front of you. The second one was give products enough space. I hate when collection pages kind of cramp all the products in this tiny corner. People are here to shop. You want to give that the most space possible. And I think you guys did a great job giving like 75% of the screen to products. Ben's one on hover states. If you're on desktop, I know most people are shopping mobile. Personally, I have a weird thing where if it's like over $150, I go to my computer. I don't know about you guys. Maybe that's a weird millennial thing. It's just like some weird threshold where it's like, I can't make that purchase like this.
Yeah, the bigger computer is safer.
Yeah, big computer, big purchase.
Yeah.
Be clear and creative with your filters. So I think this is a really good point, is absolutely no theme out of box is going to give you this option that like allows you to create tiny like icons for each of them, at least to my knowledge. They're really just going to be things you can click, like radio buttons. And your point about toe shape is really important, right? So if I'm buying a $600 boot I feel like I know cowboy boots. I feel like I know which one of these toes. I know the terminology. So like calling it out with the shapes. We do that a lot with both nav using kind of like rich imagery and icons, but like also on collection pages as well. And it's huge, right? Because let's say me, I don't have any boots, but I absolutely know that I do not want the flat, like steel-toed look. That would help me a lot. The next one was like
one other detail to add is I feel like a good way to like define what filters are important is probably just like thinking about FAQs. Like if someone's buying boots, is the toe shape like something that just comes up every time someone's shopping it and you ask a customer? Like it's actually a clever way to think about how to filter depending on what industry or category you're in. Right. Like an obvious example is like, are you buying for a gender? Are you buying for a certain height? Are you buying for a certain age? I think like something like boots is very bespoke. So obviously the toe shape is something that not many people know about. So it's probably going to be correlated to your FAQs in some way.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Next one was use badging. I think the badging that on here is like really smart. I kind of split it out to 2 points where you can call out sales in a positive light. I think the last call is like genius way to say like you should snag these while we still have them instead of saying that they're like, I don't know, maybe like just like cold product. The last one I'm gonna put in here.
Hey, Elliot, quick one on that point too is because this is a premium brand and the price point is this, like if you notice last call, it's not like a flashy red with like save 40%. Like it's not like a bang bang. It's subtle. So it kind of like if you have a premium brand or something like that, you still can advertise things, and it comes down to like the smallest little surgical things, like even the color of your tag. So just be careful with that it doesn't, it doesn't look the same as like a clearing out warehouse clearance sale type thing. Because people with that premium sense are just like, oh, cool. So not even just the last call naming, like nomenclature, but the actual like color of it, font, everything is important.
And the last one that I'm throwing in before we take some of our audience submissions to review is I like to get straight to the product. I think there's a balance between that and what Shaun said. Is if I landed here, I definitely would love to know that this is a heritage brand, that they've been doing this forever, it's handmade, whatever these like kind of reasons to buy are. But I find too many brands use up this space above the products that you see on our screen here, and it just like forces all the products so far below the fold. God forbid you have like rich content there that like loads too long and people bounce before they even see your products. But I think there's this like a balance to strike is how could you use maybe like 10% of your viewport here, so a small band below those filters but above the products, to do something that kind of like makes the product look special. I wonder if you guys agree with that, but I hate sometimes when I land on a brand and they have like all this stuff and I have to scroll just forever until I see the products.
Just a massive stock image there that pushes everything down below viewport. Yeah,
it's the worst.
Yeah, and if you go to the bottom of this page, Elliot, you'll see we always add content at the bottom for multiple reasons. One, it's great for SEO, but two, we can surface other categories. We can answer questions they might have. And if you scroll one more, like more clear review content, like what's really interesting about these boots, and that first one captures it perfectly, is a lot of people see these and they're like, oh man, these are too loud for me. Like they're pretty loud. But that first image is the perfect, right? It's his pants are down. The boot is beautiful, looks rustic. And then his other leg, the pants up. It's like this kind of hidden, it's kind of like the flashy suit jacket liner, right? It's like in a lot of cases, it's just for you. And the actual, what's shown on the outside is just a quality leather boot. You don't see all that flash. It's kind of up to the user or who is wearing it to decide that, which you don't really get in that collection page. Very valuable content, but something that you wouldn't put higher up, right? It's always going to be below the collection because it's secondary to the actual products and the page you're on.
Nice. I had 2 more pointers here then. So one is like use FAQs and rich content below the products, so all the way at the bottom of the page, and then incorporate testimonials and consumer content as well.
Hey, quick question for everybody, because we see this a lot. with apparel brands, especially if there was different colorways, a lot of brands will have the color selectors on the page, or they'll show all colors in the collection, right? So it'll be the same shoe or boot, but it's like an infinite. You just keep scrolling, and it serves you all the other colors. Do you guys have any take on which is better? Do you want people to keep scrolling through the same boot, which is in different colors, or page smaller with the color selectors, or both?
I personally would recommend putting color selectors in the same card, because I think the way that we would probably interpret a product page as well is it's one product with different variations.
Yeah.
So I would want my collection page to be consistent with my product page, in that it's one product with different variations, whether it's size or color. I think by putting a bunch of the same product but a different colorway on a collection page, to me, just makes it a little bit more confusing. Where I think, like I said, the idea is discoverability. So it's just to like find the product, and then you can click into the product if you want to get more detailed in terms of sizing, color, etc.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think in that higher boots case, the only reason it would be treated differently there, I think, is they have certain boots where it's not just a simple color change. The color changes on a certain boot, but also the boot has added detail on a certain color, or a different stitching on a certain color. So it's totally agree with Ben. I think you want to condense things as much as possible. It's just kind of a case by case. If there's more unique qualities when you hit a color change, then you probably want to show both.
I'll say, I'll play devil's advocate, and my example is Lululemon's website, because I buy a ton of Lululemon, being from Canada and stuff. I will scroll through their shit, and I'll notice a color I like in a t-shirt that I've already seen, and then go shop that, whereas I wouldn't have clicked on it if it was in a color that I didn't like sometimes. So I think it probably is worth a test if you have a brand that's almost like a household name and people are coming back and buying a lot. Like with Lululemon, I don't go on there looking for something in particular. I just go on, I'm like, oh, what do they have new, right? And
yeah, I'm the opposite. I like the same pair of shorts and the same style shirt, and I'll go onto that product and see like what colorways they have. Like there's a pair of Gymshark shorts. I've like 5 pairs of the same short.
Yeah.
So I would rather just like get to the product that I know I like, and then look for other colors versus. I think it's interesting. I think, look, at the end of the day, that's the beauty of like A/B testing, is you need to figure out who your customer is, right? Is it people who are just looking to discover new things, or is it the person who knows exactly what product they want, just in different colors? So I think the takeaway for anyone listening to this is that we're giving insights, but there's no right or wrong answer at large. Like every brand should test different edge cases and ideas based on category, price point, SKU count, etc.
Yeah. There's always surprises in tests that we don't really understand, but always test.
All right, should we jump into the first one, Elliot?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So, Shaun, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I think if you scroll down, I think the first thing I would mention here is they do a good job, if you hover on some of these, kind of going back to that hover state, of providing additional info in the hover. The only thing I would mention is there's some diversity among them. With this type of product, at least in this specific collection, the most important thing you can do is help them understand the size better, right? So that lamp you just hovered on does a great job of showing its size in relation to other things. Whereas that coat hanger, they just show the alternate color, which has value, but I don't know if that coat hanger is this big or this big, right? And that size difference between a small hanger and a big hanger is 100% going to affect my price sensitivity, right? $175 if it's, doll size versus going to cover my whole entryway. There's a big difference between whether that's for me or not. So I think it's just being consistent with those. If you're going to show a secondary image that shows it in reality, do your best to show it. Like I would show the hover image on that. Maybe it is the white one, but it's the white one on a wall with coats on it, so I can see how big it is next to my door, right? give me an exact size reference. And a lot of them do that, but some don't.
I have another comment that's a little bit more functional, but Elliot, if you go to the sort by drop down and click best selling on the right side, I think it's the default, but if you click it and then you scroll down, like you see there, yeah, so you click it, but then there's certain products as you scroll down that has the bestseller icon, but it's a little confusing to me. Like, what is the filter of the best selling if you have bestseller icon products that aren't filtered to the top?
Yeah.
So I think my recommendation would be, if those are truly the best sellers, and they should be filtered to the top products that you're looking at, or to just maybe check to see if the filter is working properly.
One of the other notes here on any collections page is we're on a specific brands collection. So this site, from what I can tell, carries a bunch of different brands. We're on auto, and I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. And when I'm in the filtering, if you click brand, they just show auto. So it's almost like this specific collection page is just for this specific brand, which is great. It's been filtered. But if I landed here, I get the idea that this is the only brand they carry, whereas there might be hundreds, 10, whatever, however many other brands. So that brand drop down should say Auto Copenhagen. It should have a radio selector or whatever you're using visually to say this is where you are, but it should show the other brands. It should be easy to navigate to other brands within your, larger collection of what you carry.
Shaun, you know what's actually interesting about that? So when you drop down, even though it is already the default brand page, Elliot, if you actually click on the Auto Copenhagen button, it will just draw you back to the top of the page, and then it shows the little icon as a selector. So it's almost like it's not really serving its purpose on the original drop-down state. Because I think the other thing is, if your intention is not to show other brands, then you should probably just remove the brand drop-down from your filtering options.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one or the other. I personally think once you're here, you probably want to give them access to additional things rather than forcing them into the navigation as your only option. But yeah, it's a good point. Like, if they clearly have the functionalities built there, so why isn't the filtering allowing it?
We'll do an episode on like site-wide. Sometime we have to switch to the next person, but I think like my take would be like, I understand that it's kind of like supposed to be Nordic minimalist, it's supposed to be like designer forward, but certain things are difficult to use, right? So I like the very small fonts. I think they're elegant, but I had no idea what Ben was talking about when he said search by like best selling, just because it's kind of hidden. There's not a lot of contrast between the fonts. I mean, now when it says sort by, that must be like size 8 font. So we'll do a site-wide episode sometime soon. I think we'll talk about like just like decisions that can impact your entire website and usability. But let's move on to the next brand. So thanks, Jason, for submitting Canso. This is Dina submitted Paleo Nola, which looks to be kind of like a grain-free granola company. So this is the all collection. What are your thoughts on this banner area? Is it too big? Would you change anything about it?
It is too big, but in their defense, they do remove it on mobile, which I think is a great first step. And, like I was saying with Hire, maybe they're driving traffic here. And so it can become important to outline a little bit about the brand before just saying, hey, here's the products, do you like them? So I'm not totally against it. I think you could probably dial in what's being said there to be a couple of simple bullet points instead of a paragraph, but something to consider. One thing I love here is whenever you have very few filters, there's no harm in just showing them, right? Like, instead of hiding them or tucking them away in a dropdown, what they do here is they just surface the 5 filters: nuts, granola, packs, protein bar. It gives me an instant view of the different types of products I'm looking at. One thing that they don't do well, because I think this is all, Yeah. Is on the product cards, they don't tell me what I'm looking at. So that first one says granola, but then vanilla bean, I don't know if that's granola. Is that nuts? Is that a pack? It doesn't necessarily tell me what category it's in. And so what you're doing is you're forcing the user to click to the product page, not to shop it, but to learn more. And
Shaun, I think this also goes to the point I made earlier about like supplements brands, which I think also holds true for food, is like utilize the second image on hover to show some of this information about the product, whether it's the nutrition label or answering some of these questions that you're raising.
What does that expander do, Elliot? Is just
I think that's a quick ad.
Quick view or quick ad? Okay.
Yeah, that in particular functionality, like Taylor said, it can work. Generally, we see it working better on a product page. This one in particular is tough for me because it's actually not telling them what it's doing.
Yeah.
So you're not communicating that it's going to add to cart. It could be an information expander, right? Plus sign is very common for an accordion. So if you're gonna do it, it needs to tell them, hey, this, add to cart. But again, very few people are gonna add to cart when they don't know what they're buying, right? I'm buying vanilla bean what? How much of vanilla bean am I buying? Is it, I don't know how many milligrams, I don't know how big that bag is. I don't have a hover state that shows me the bag on a counter, so that doesn't even give me the info. And then going back to the higher boots example, where they made sure every image was the exact same viewport, exact same size reference. I think that, for instance, vanilla bean and cinnamon blueberry are the exact same product in two different flavors, but the images are different, right? So I'm probably going to click vanilla bean thinking it's a bigger bag for the same price, right? Maybe not every user is going to think that, but they're the same price, different flavors, and vanilla bean looks bigger because of the image. And the images, for the most part, are consistent, but I think a lot of brands get hung up on making sure that these images are photos, and there's just too many good resources available to get renderings that you can't tell the difference. So there's really no excuse for these all to have different lighting. Even the way, like the pecans word on these bags, in the right lighting, it's probably super easy to read. In the lighting they have here, not super easy to read. So like utilizing renderings can make that a lot easier to work through. But yeah, in general, I think it's more just how do we get the right information in front of the user here? Make sure they understand how big they are, make sure they understand what they're buying, right? Which of these is granola, which of these is nuts. And I think you're in a good spot.
I think one last thing I'll add to this, and Dino's, I can send you a collection page that I think would be relevant for some changes that Shaun spoke to. But the last one is the way that you have it set up right now structurally is it's forcing the entire page to reload every time you click a new filter. There's definitely some like infrastructure changes that you can make where it's only rendering like new information. So it's like a page speed issue that you'll run into with having to render the entire page every time someone changes the filter.
Hey, Elliot, can you go back to all one time and then just scroll to the bottom of all the products? Just a small little thing that some brands do well, but it's like the bottom right corner, right? How it's got kind of an empty slot there. You can always utilize that for like a customer testimonial, press piece, award, highlight of the ingredients or something, like just to make it just feel more square, like it's that open space. And we see a lot of brands that just have open spaces throughout their collection pages. Utilize that for something that's going to add trust, get them, across the finish line faster. So some brands are starting to do it, but there's a ton that we see that just kind of leave it open.
One thing that I was going to note before we move on to the next example is I'm noticing that the average price for these is relatively low. And we always joke that AOV is in our DNA, and we're trying to teach everybody how to make more money from the shoppers that they have. I think something would be really cool, and this is true to me, like if you're eating granola daily, right? It's just your breakfast. There should be either like a subscription bump or just like if you're going to have a button to add one to your cart, consider having a secondary CTA that's like a bundle of a couple of them, right? So if I'm shopping the maple pancake flavored granola, I can add 1 to my bag, but maybe just like add 5. I don't know. You could experiment with like a couple of
especially
numbers.
for low price point impulse purchases. I think, Shaun, at the point we talked about earlier, we like the quick add functionality for impulse purchase products. So not like a $400 pair of boots, but like a $5 to $10 piece of food where like you might be hungry while you're shopping. You're like, oh, this looks good. So I think to Elliot's point, this is a really easy way to increase AOV by having a quantity selector here if you're going to give someone the quick add functionality.
Yeah, like I'm a Costco shopper and I absolutely love it because, you know, I cook a lot, but I absolutely hate breakfast and lunch. And I love to have the options in my house. Buying 1 bag of granola gives me anxiety because I'm going to eat through that in a couple of days. I would buy like 6 of these if I like them in one go. But it does feel a bit painful if I have to click 6 different pluses versus just like, I'm going to press this button, check out with Apple Pay, and it's a done deal.
Yeah.
Should move on to the next one, Elliot, just in spirit of time.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Dinos? Sorry if I butchered that.
This is from Claire. Claire comes to so many of these. She's like a VIP, so you guys should do, you know, special treatment for her. But this is a brand called Bond. Let's see what they do.
Also, congrats, Claire. I believe I read you just started a new position, so well done. Lucky to have you.
All right, scrolling too fast. Maybe you start from the top. So I think like from jump, I think this 20% of the screen where it says products and 15 products could be used better. If there's really no content there, just like get straight to the point, or use that 20% band. I wish I could highlight or draw here. But what I'm saying is this area, it says products and 15 products through to the end of the screen. If you're not going to have a section that is taking up that whole width, then it's kind of dead space.
Mm-hmm. I think sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's unused white space. I think even though you only have 14 products, I still think having basic filter functionality at a minimum is worthy because people are really lazy to the extent that they know what's available to you beyond just 14 products. I think it will ultimately allow people to get to where they want to go faster, which is really important.
So I will speak from my days being in beauty and wellness. People always talk about need spaces, and it seems like you already built your product range based on need spaces. So these things that are written above, like vaginary and urinary tract health, if you'd use that space above to be like, why don't you pick what your need is, what your pain is, however you want to phrase it. And then by clicking that, you'll get the products that are catering to that need or pain space. Pain space is probably not the right word, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's like if you're shopping supplements like this, I believe these are supplements, then like going with the end point or goal is probably an easy way to shop as opposed to putting them all in front of them because these look great. I mean, I guess if I was going through like perimenopause or something, or I was trying to have kids or whatever this is for, I would want all of them. But that's kind of overwhelming versus like knowing the first one is like maybe I get UDIs frequently, so I'm going to go with the first product.
I think too, with these types of products, there's a lot of opportunity to confuse people with simple stuff. And there's the 2 rings together. I'm guessing it's a secondary logo for the Bond brand. But as soon as I see them attached to the name at the top or the purpose at the top, I start to think that it's part of like something that's trying to be communicated. But then as I scroll down, it's above the hoodie and the socks. So I'm like, okay, well, this is just content for content's sake. So I would be careful with those things. I think calling out the purpose of these items is really great. But I would probably remove that brand detail just because when you enter the site or that collection at the start, it can be confusing. Same comment as the other sites. I think image consistency is important here. You've done a good job of like taking up the space, but each of these cards communicates quite a lot on them. And so there's kind of 2 camps. One is if your packaging is really loud and direct, right? Like think, oh my God, the name's going to escape me. Taylor, what are the bars where they say the 4 ingredients on the cover?
RX bar.
RX bar. So RX bar as an example, everything I need to know about the product is on the packaging, really loud and bold. and there's no other content. They could get away with saying nothing on their product cards except the price because the packaging says everything. What you're doing is you're showing the packaging so large that they could read it on the pack or on the card. And I think it's probably smart in this case, just for scroll depth. And even on mobile, you show them one card at a time. You could reduce the size of each of these quite a bit if you just communicated things once. And so that's not saying remove the image, but my suggestion would be make the images a bit smaller, let them read the content on the card instead of trying to squint and figure it out from the packaging. And you're going to have a lot less space taken up on the page. You'll be able to have more products in view at once. And you'll probably be able to list them in rows of 2 on mobile instead of 1 at a time, which will help a lot.
I think the other thing I would add to this is if you're going to put the CTA on the collection pages, having some sort of visual like delineation between products or like hover on the actual add to cart would be helpful. Because to Shaun's point, there's a lot of information bunched in here and it's hard to tell on like the actual hover state if it's going to add or not. I think like putting a border around it or a color change on the hover would be helpful here.
Something I was going to add is how you merchandise the order. So like I think selling apparel is awesome, right? And especially if you have people who are huge fans of your brand and want to support it and everything. It's just I'm wondering if putting the hoodie, unless you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys are selling buckets of hoodies and this is like a genius thing. And the socks, it kind of gets in the way of what it looks like your core products. I've seen a lot of the apparel kind of be put towards the end for like the real fans who are scrolling through and looking at everything they want. There's also a filter they can click if they just want to see apparel. But I would probably wager that like some of these products that are a little bit lower down would benefit from being closer to the top.
I have a different order than you on my page, actually.
Oh, interesting. Is it random?
I'm not sure.
Hey, Claire, are you guys using some sort of personalization tool for collections? Feel free to comment in there. That might be why.
One other thing I would note here, and we deal with a lot of products like this in the supplement space, women's healthcare space. I think a lot of brands tend to make the assumption that showing the volume communicates something, right? Like even if you imagine something as common as protein powder, if you tell me it's 100 ounces or 10 ounces, that means fucking nothing to me, right? If I need to take 1 ounce a day, 100 ounces is crazy. It's 100 servings. If I need to take 10 a day, it's only 10 servings. So in this stage in the journey, I would suggest calling out the number of servings it is or the number of months it will last you, right? Like it's 7 ounces for the cycle care. Am I taking an ounce a day? Is it going to last like 20 count travel packs? Am I supposed to take it daily? Is that 20 days or is it every week? And that's 20 weeks. The length of time this product will last has a very, very specific relationship to their price sensitivity, right? If something's going to last me a week, $85 is expensive. If it's going to last me 3 months, $22 a month doesn't seem that crazy. So I think communicating that more clearly here is important versus just showing how much the physical volume is, because a lot of people aren't taking this currently and every product's different, right? So your dosage might be different.
And I like using the number of servings, but like in this case, I like how long is it going to last, because you're almost forcing them to know you're supposed to take this daily if it's a daily product, right? So It's like, this is going to last you a month because you're going to take it every single day, just to kind of start getting in their head already that like utilize it. Because in a lot of supplements, vitamins, you get on auto subscribe and all of a sudden you have like 4 extra bottles at your house. And if you just kind of force them down that during the customer journey of getting the repetition of this is a daily thing, then that messaging can help further down the line too.
I hate to bring up the question that covers Ben's face, but there's maybe we can answer this one while I pull up the next store.
It's a good question. I think if your main product image on mobile can communicate additional info without complicating the product page. Like in that higher boots example, you could argue that those hover images where it shows the measurements would be a great base image on mobile because they communicate more, but they still show the product at almost the exact same size. So in that case, it probably is yes. But I would say as you scale down to mobile, the best thing to think about is, okay, I no longer have access to hover states. What was I showing in that hover state that I can add to the content below it? So maybe it was how it fits. Maybe it was the servings. Maybe it was showing it being mixed into water, whatever. Add that content into the actual written content because you can't have it hover image. Alternatively, on mobile, you can utilize, a couple dot indicators for a carousel and let them see that they could swipe between images. So even though you don't have hover states, there is opportunity to surface additional images if you really want. Definitely something to test, don't just do it, but that's another way to bring that value into the mobile experience that you are already doing on desktop.
That's a great thing to test, actually. It's an easy one. Like install Shoplift or something, duplicate the collections page, change the hover state, like flop it and send traffic there. Like that's an easy one that isn't going to take like a CRO professional to do.
So this next one is a brand called Milky Way that make, what are these, Ben? I've never seen these before.
Never seen them before.
It doesn't look familiar to me. What are these?
I don't know what these are, but I think off the bat,
But I think I'm gonna buy one.
I think off the bat,
Beautiful vases.
I would say that the trickiest thing is, like, as a general rule, and you can prove me wrong with data, but you should never make your store's background color black. The exception of this is like Hexclad, that is, multi-$100 million brand with all the resources in the world, and they just were like, fuck it, we're going to do it. For most other instances, it's just difficult, right? And I know that your branding here, if I'm picking it up correctly, is like this thing in the dark, like illuminate it slightly, or like have the images kind of look like they're in the shadow. But it does kind of take a little bit longer to realize what I'm looking at versus when it's on a white background.
Yeah, the reference I always give customers when they want, because we get asked a lot, hey, can we make the site background really dark? And especially on a collections page, you're trying to get people to easily identify something, to easily see it. And you never see an art gallery with black walls. Like, there's a reason for that. It's not every art gallery owner loves white. It's because it allows the paintings to pop off the wall better. It allows them to grab your attention better than if they were on a black wall, right? Most art galleries have really bright lighting, same reason. And so to Elliot's point, I think being able to visualize these would be a lot easier if that was the case. And then additionally here, you have, I can't tell if those are a color selector or just an image selector. It looks like some of them are showing.
They're image selectors, but they actually put coming soon as a holder, which I've never seen before. So Elliot, if you click on click on one of the image selectors. Yeah, picture coming soon.
So definitely don't do that. But I think in general here, this is another one of those products where I'm going to take a guess here, but it looks like the first product there, X Emergence, is much bigger than the koi carp. But if we look at the images, they're the same size, right? They're the same height, whereas actually the one is 7.5 inches taller. Again, one of those things where it's like, it becomes hard in this case because some of these products are really big and some are really small, but trying to find that middle ground where it's clear that they're looking at a smaller product versus a bigger product, especially because these aren't that far apart in price. So it becomes even harder to differentiate.
The tough part is because we had a drinkware company before in glass, and like shooting glass is so freaking ridiculously difficult. Plus I get like the Milky Way vibe to it, but yeah, the size thing, there you go. Yeah, product is glass. The size thing is definitely a big one, especially like, I don't know much about this industry, but if you want a big rip, small rip, You know, if this is like in your house, a little portable one to take to, you know, wherever. Super important when you're selecting, I would assume.
It's a great product to use those images like we showed on Hire, where you're showing actual size measurements on the hover.
Elliot, I realize that we are at time already.
Just having too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We had a couple more, but where can people find you guys? What's your pitch?
Yeah, anyone that didn't get a chance for us to review it, just submit your site on our site, audit.co. There's a free trial option. Just put your collections page in there and we'll leave some comments, send it back. And then, yeah, you can follow us on Twitter. It's Audit is the Twitter handle. Feel free to cruise through our site. We do a bunch of different stuff like this, but more physical, obviously. Actually redesign things and help you optimize things. And then, yeah, you can also just book a call with us and shoot the shit.
And then if we didn't get a chance to go over your store today, if you want to DM me, I can give you a Loom video in response right after this. And then if you are interested in learning more about what we can offer at Platter, feel free to just go book a meeting on the site, and I'll drop it in the comments below.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And then we will keep you updated on what the next episode will be.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.